Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's John Ross with the XPian News Daily Report. Today, we're going to have another look at Aurora. This is a special look at mayoral candidate, and we're going to have a special guest, John Laesch, who's candidate for the mayor of the City of Aurora. And so welcome, John, and we're going to put him up on the screen memento here in a moment here. We're going to get him up from my queue, and he's coming up right now. There's John. Thank you, John, for joining me today.
It's good to be here, John, and I'm excited about this opportunity to share my vision for Aurora with the people that watch your show.
Yeah, well, we'll do that, John. And I just again want to thank John for being with us today. I think I've known John a few years, and I was telling them earlier, John ran for Congress, and John got real close on that one, and I remember that. And I have a yard sign in my in my garage. I got a lot of yard signs in my yard. They got winners.
I collect them too.
They got winners. They got losers. I got one presidential now that I think about it or two. Sometimes people are into yard signs and come out, and sometimes they're not. And well, anyway, and I'm on a dead street sort of, so doesn't usually do too much good to have. I mean, a slow street. It's not bad, but
I have an original Obama for Senate 04 sign.
Oh, nice. Classics. You got the classics, as they say.
And I think he did put his photo on it.
Oh, so. I told John earlier, you don't want photos on these things. You know, they don't do much of anything. But that's what I read. I don't know. It's someone's. The name is more important. You got to remember the name. The name.
That's right.
The name. Well, John, I looked at your website. We'll put that up later here, a little later at the end. I'll put it up, make sure everybody can see some of your issues. I wanted to first give you the classic. I told you, I think I even warned John in this one, the Ted Kennedy question. Maybe some of you know about Ted Kennedy and Jimmy Carter, the question that he sort of, well, anyway. You know what the question is if I said that, if you're really a political junkie out there. John, why are you running for this office of mayor of Aurora? Why are you running?
So first, I just want to say, one, I appreciate all of your comments in the what's happening in Aurora, because what I think you've done is keep things positive. And you're always shining a light on the good things that are happening in our city.
Well, thank you.
And some of the interesting things that most people aren't following. A little historical perspective. But why am I running? I think we need a new vision. I am an environmentalist and a climate activist. I sat on the DNC platform committee this summer and pushed a number of amendments that basically said that the U.S. taxpayers should not be subsidizing the fossil fuel industry. We currently subsidize fossil fuels to the tune of $20 billion every year. And I've always thought, well, what if we put all that money into making people's houses more energy efficient, getting more solar panels on the roof for people, for our schools, for businesses? Why not put the money into those things that get us off of fossil fuels and move us into a 21st century energy program? So, you know, when those amendments failed, I realized the power of the fossil fuel industry, and I thought, well, what can we be doing better? You know, could we make Aurora a green city? Could we achieve the goals of the Green New Deal to put poor people back to work with good job training programs, with incentives for people to make their houses more energy efficient, a Department of Sustainability to tap into some of the resources that are out there and bring that money into our local economy and be a green city, with the idea that if we start down this path now, in 15 to 20 years, we'll be a national leader in this movement. It's not going away. It's the future. Getting it on the ground floor matters. Most European countries are 10 to 15 years ahead of the United States. The city of Burlington, Vermont is 100% renewable power. The country of Austria, Vienna, Austria, is 100% renewable power. So Burlington, a town of maybe 20,000, and Austria, 1.7 million people have done this. The city of Aurora, a town of 200,000 people, can do it too. That's not the only reason. I've certainly run into a lot of pay-to-play schemes, corruption, things I don't like to see in government, and I think we can clean that up as well. But the driving issue is trying to address poverty. We have a 12% poverty level in our city, and address the climate crisis from the city of Aurora. And this is a new issue. It's not forefront of people's minds. It's not like the virus where it's a clear and present danger, and people are thinking about, how do I keep myself safe? But it's an existential threat. My generation is going to have to deal with it, and I would rather start now. So I believe that the city of Aurora can be, I always say the City of Lights can be a beacon of hope, and we can carve out an aggressive plan to move towards alternative energy, green building, save people money on their heating and cooling costs, and put people to work. So it's very encompassing look at the city, and hopefully we'll talk about other issues. I don't want to take up the whole time talking about the nuanced details of green building, but I am a union carpenter, a PPI certified energy auditor, and I have the technical expertise, as well as having worked on a lot of policies that could move us in this direction.
And John, well, we can come back to some of this. We're going to come back. I talked to my friend at The Voice, Carter Crane, this morning, and he just said, Carter, what can I ask John, and what would be a good thing to ask? And Carter, it's a simple question. Is what do you think? I think you've addressed that a little here, but what do you think is the most urgent thing for the city of Aurora? What's the most urgent thing?
I'm going to answer that a little bit differently than maybe what you expect. My decision to run wasn't just tied to the green building thing. It was also taking a look at the sharp divides in our entire nation right now. And I think that what we need is new leaders who are not going to, I guess, jump into those divisive fights, fan the flames, but and toe the party lines. But we need people who are very focused on bringing us together.
Okay.
So to me, uniting our city is important, and showing that we have more in common than we have that divides us. And the city is, I think we've seen ourselves unite around things like the Henry Pratt shooting, right?
Right.
And where we felt something inflicted a wound in our community, we all felt it. We came together in that brief moment. We called ourselves One Aurora,
Right.
Aurora Strong. And I just think we should have something other than tragedy that brings us together. So, seeing us united behind this idea that we can address poverty and move us in a different direction into the 21st century, I think is something that I hope the city can unite behind. But I've kind of answered maybe some of your questions. You'll hear me say again and again, poverty, green building. So you might get tired of it.
I understand that. It's fine.
But I do feel strongly that we need more voices uniting us around the things we all care about. Our kids getting a chance at a college education, having an equal opportunity in life, being able to pay your bills, being able to survive, living your version of the American dream, chasing your dream, and living free of fear of homelessness, fear of economic insecurity, retirement security. I think we all have more in common than we do that divides us, and it blows my mind that we're so divided right now.
Okay. You were one of your, I don't know if that's necessarily your first point, but one of your points of your platform, or I guess that's what we'll call it, or issue pages, is about contributions and et cetera, that I've looked at this before about Mayor Irvin. Mayor Irvin, and this can be looked at the state Board of Education, Board of Elections, not education, election disclosures. He's got over $250,000 in his account right now for running again for mayor, and many of these things. I know one of them is he's got railroad money lawyers, probably the casino, other down businesses, lawyers. He's got a lot of connections that way. And I was wondering how you can do this. How are you? And then I looked for John, and I don't know why this was this way, but I didn't see any disclosure for your campaign right now on the state site right now. Maybe I
It is there.
Maybe I missed your name or something wrong. I didn't see your group listed.
It's Citizens for John Laesch. So
I
if you
think
look
I
for,
didn't see that, but maybe it's there. But anyway, that's one way to know, where your money's coming from and where the mayor's money's coming from. It's one way. I mean, you can disclose it other ways too, but so I just was wondering, how are you going to fight this? There's a lot of money there for the mayor.
So part of your question is a policy question. Part of your question is a political question. How do you run against money and win?
Right.
We talked about unity, right? And you had asked what what I think the most important issues affecting Aurora are. And maybe what I want to say is the first thing that I want to do once elected is I think there is, I talked about unity and bringing us together. There's strong bipartisan support to get rid of the pay-to-play system and the corruption in all levels of government. We're seeing Mike Madigan go down right now, one of the most powerful political figures in Illinois history for 4 decades. And it's corruption that took him down, but he's been corrupt the whole time he's been there. And I think that people are sick and tired of that in both cities. So the first act that I'm going to do when I get elected is, and probably my first 3 months there will be spent restoring democracy, pushing ethics reform. And I've said my very first act will be taking a 25% pay cut. Right. The current mayor and aldermen have opted for a pay raise. It is, in my opinion, we have a full-time city manager that makes good money. This is an act of public service. And if we want to change the culture in City Hall, we need to say that this is going to be a public servant's position. And that's my role. They're going to get a full-time mayor who works long hours. Anybody that knows me knows that I work 10 to 12-hour days, if not 15 on many occasions. I'm very dedicated. But we need to, in that first 3 months, push ethics reform. We are going to have a lot of town halls. They might be in person, they might be virtual, depending on the status of the virus. But we need to incorporate the ideas of the people in our city. And then we, and that means bringing 3 groups of people together, city employees, the council, and the public that we all are there to represent. And have a listening session and a dialogue about what direction we want to take our city. I'm telling people very clearly which direction I want to go, but there's other things that people want out of their government, and it's our job to be a representative government to represent those. So you talked about the money that the current mayor brings in, and a lot of that is money with strings, people that want things out of the city of Aurora. And what that means is the entire city agenda is working for people who can afford to contribute to the political figures that run City Hall. And that means that they are not taking the concerns of the residents. Instead, they're just governing on behalf of the wealthy and the powerful and the people that can buy access. So what I'm talking about is replacing that pay-to-play system with a more democratic system and carrying out an agenda where everybody's on the same page with the same goals, and we can always in the council meetings then go back to those goals and address those. Now we're going to talk just a little bit about electability. You mentioned that I've run for office before. The last large-scale race that I ran, I was outspent 14-1 and fell 300 votes short. A very close race.
Right. And
that is a combination of things. One is having a strong ground campaign, which in this race for mayor, we have the strongest ground campaign. Very dedicated volunteers. Nobody on this campaign is getting paid, and they're motivated. The other piece of it is a motivation to enact meaningful change and be a voice for the people. Yeah, I mentioned the uniting capacity of a government that works for the people, and I think that if we do that, if we walk in and we set an agenda for the people, and we shut the door on the pay-to-play system, we have a fair contracting system that invites everybody to the table when it comes to city contracts, I think that we're going to restore the public's trust and be able to do much more in a way of governing on behalf of the people. And I think that also is something that'll be a breath of fresh air for the nation as they look at Aurora, as we start to rebuild ourselves after the pandemic as a united city.
Now,
did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did that one part. I just want to know about your campaign. Is it? Are you disclosing where your funds are coming from?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. So it is Citizens for John Laesch is our website, and
well, maybe you haven't filed yet because it's the
no. We've
was the file day. Maybe you have a while to file. I don't know. I didn't. Maybe
we've filed on. You should be able to find our D2s. We have filed 2 quarterly filings.
Okay, well, maybe I didn't do that right. Maybe I didn't look at it right there. But anyway, so that's good. You got.
Yeah, we've raised $40,000 from. It's probably over 500 small contributors now. No PAC money, no super PAC money, nobody doing business with City Hall.
So you got no PAC money, because I want to. I don't want to digress here, but I'm not. Your latter part of your sheet there had about one group that I'm not exactly a big fan of. Planned Parenthood. Did they donate any money in the PAC money to you?
No.
Okay, that's all I wanted to ask. Let's move on then. We have,
and I don't even know if they'll endorse in this race. Just so you know.
But you mentioned them in yeah. But you did mention about them on your website, though. That's all. Yeah. Okay, I understand. TIFs. Now this is a long story. Maybe I'll get this all wrong. Now you basically a lot of the TIFs. I don't know if let's just say there's. Well, the casino would be an example. I think, the casino money, if they don't have a TIF there, would be like the schools would be going to West Aurora, I guess, right? Because it's on the west side, technically, I believe. Like the casino.
The casino's on the west side?
Yeah, it's a 60506.
Okay.
So I assume it's west side. I'm just giving an example. I'm not saying this is true or not. But anyway, if you made that a TIF, then the school wouldn't get the money. That's one argument against TIFs, because they're taking money away from, those type of entities, right? The TIFs, and then the city just decides where they want to put the TIFs, right? Is that one of your arguments on the TIFs? Why you're not too big on TIFs?
The TIF, right? I'm not 100% against TIFs.
Okay, I didn't catch that either, but you got some critique. What would that be of TIFs?
The cities use TIFs. They're generally used. These are basically saying that a business can move in and not pay taxes.
Right.
And I believe that the current.
They pay that's another story too. But TIFs are taxes going to to a district, right? TIFs. They go to a tax.
So what it does is it means. So when I was on the East Aurora School Board,
right,
the number of TIFs in East Aurora in District 131 siphoned $1 million out of the East Aurora.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They siphon,
right.
And they go. In other words, the city government can decide where the TIF's going instead of you're not getting your school board money. That's what I'm saying, right?
And then the school still has to pay their teachers, still has to buy books, still has to maintain the building. So what happens is the taxpayers, the homeowners generally end up paying more money.
I get your argument. Yes,
in taxes.
Yeah,
so
yes, because if they have more TIFs, yes. And now I'm going to go to an example that it maybe is part of this. The casino moving, I don't know how they would do that. The city's got this thought. I don't know where it's going. You know more, maybe inside politics there in Aurora. I don't know about the casino going out by the tollway or something.
Right.
Big Wish or something. I have a better idea. They should get the state to help out, and let's have a civic center in Aurora instead of another casino.
There you go.
But anyway, that I don't know if there's they could throw in all their TIF money on it too, I guess. I don't know. TIFs sometimes got to be designated. I don't know all that, but it does take money away from the schools. That's a known fact. And
Right.
That where that area is, some of you audience maybe don't know. I do live in Batavia, and I know a lot about that area where we're talking at the tollway. That area, the district is Batavia School District. Now,
That's
it's
Batavia
a really
District
weird
101.
thing. It's north of the tollway. So East Aurora loses out. I mean, East Aurora has lost out quite a bit on a lot of these things, and I agree with your TIF thing too. East Aurora needs help, and our local taxpayers need help. So, anyway, that was just a digression here. Sorry about that. How with this type of with the pandemic? This is a little follow up. With the pandemic, how are we going to recover here? Do we have to have more property tax? How are you going to? We're going to need some state monies here more. I mean, our budgets are going to be hurt here, aren't they, John? Wouldn't you say that our local budgets are going to be hurt? And is property tax the answer? Well, or layoffs? I mean, some governments are laying off people too. And how are we going to handle this pandemic dilemma? I would say that's on the budgets.
So I have a lot of big ideas about what we can do with respect to green building and actually offering tax breaks for homeowners who move in those directions, for business owners that move in that direction. We have to wait and see, one, what the federal government does, and
Right.
two, how the pandemic shakes out on the economy. I think we're starting to see the tip of the iceberg with respect to growing unemployment levels. And we're just going to have to, I mean, because if I get elected, we're still looking at 4 months, almost full 4 months now from today that I would be in office. And things are changing so dramatically. I've often said that I have big ideas about the direction I want to take our city, but the reality is we might be fighting to keep people in their homes. And that might be the crux of what we're trying to do.
Right.
So, and balance our budget. You know, there's always a combination of things that you can do to balance a budget. Of course, you mentioned layoffs. I don't think there's much appetite for tax increases. And then what the federal government does to subsidize municipalities like Aurora is going to matter. So I'm trying to, some things I can be clear about. Again, not knowing what we're going into, is that priority one is keeping people in their homes.
Right.
And working with whatever state or federal aid or guidelines that are laid out with respect to economic recovery. So there's going to be, my other thing I'll say clearly is I support the small businesses that have invested in this town and have called Aurora home. And I'm not out chasing new businesses with healthy incentives when the folks who have been here fighting to rebuild Aurora are already taken a risk in our city, invested in our city, are part of our city. They're going to be first at the table.
That's very good. Yeah, because sometimes cities, I think they can do this on the sales tax. They give it back, or I don't know how they do that, but some retail businesses, if they come, they might hold off on doing the sales tax, and then that's really hurting the other business. In other words, they incentivize the new business, and the business that has been there,
and that's been happening a lot.
Business, or we support the big business, but maybe not the small business. And offshoot on that, what's your thought about our helps for our restaurants? I know you had some thoughts. Well, what were your helps for our restaurant and coffee shops, other things along that line to help them to get through this? I know you had some thoughts on that.
Yeah, number one, something anybody can do, and as a candidate for this office, what I've been doing is just promoting them. Number two is making, and encouraging people that, yes, I've heard people say they want a Starbucks downtown. I'm like, well, we have 4 wonderful independent coffee brewers that need your support right now.
Right. I agree.
Number two, I mentioned how I liked how you keep things positive. I do like to say that I think that there has been a good effort to develop curbside service for people.
Right.
There's some room for improvement in supporting small businesses and things that I would do different than the current mayor. And one is a more equitable distribution of the CARES Act money. We're starting to dig into that and making sure that we're supporting our small businesses equally, especially those who are following the rules, staying shut during the pandemic and helping
Right.
reduce the
Right. Well,
threat
that's very
of
good.
the COVID.
Yeah.
So that is something that I will do differently. I will not be saying that these businesses that supported my political campaign are going to be the winners and people that don't support my political campaign are going to be losers. I think that's what's wrong with government. So I will not be doing that.
Okay. That's very
And
good to hear.
there's other things that I think the city needs to look at, which is do we have a role in promoting those businesses, not picking winners and losers? Because right now I try and go to, I'm going to be doing something where I go visit all the small coffee shops, and I want to pick winners. On Christmas, I did all my Christmas shopping in 3 businesses in downtown Aurora, and all of them are multi-vendor businesses.
Right.
So they've got several small vendors inside there. One's like Warehouse 55, Wickwood, and Cottonseed.
Yeah.
They're representing a lot of smaller businesses in there, and there's wonderful stuff. But I
Right.
didn't want to pick favorites, so I did all 3. And when I go drink coffee, I'll do the same thing, and I'll probably be a little bit hopped up.
I hear there's a lot of good small businesses here. I have a few that I've helped on the show here. I don't want to say that
Great.
they're the only ones, but I do have some friendships with people. So, but they do need our support. And I think you're talking about tables. I know and how we can do more. In Batavia, they've closed a street or 2, and then, especially where some restaurants are near. It didn't help 1 or 2 restaurants. It's a very tricky thing here in how restaurants can think on this and how they can get ahead, and other businesses too. It's really difficult. And I know it's one thing you've said, and I think I would call it the sin tax increase, but you want to increase the tax on cannabis, maybe. Is that could get some more money there too, right?
Yeah, so this is something though, but I've been pretty clear. Another place that the Aurora budget has been cut has been to youth services. And
Yeah.
these programs have served in a very important role. If you remember the history of Aurora, we at one point had 25, 30 gang shootings and murders per year.
Right, right.
And we've come away from that.
Right. That's
And
very true.
some of these programs that intervened in kids' lives when they were young and susceptible to that were instrumental, and we've seen their budgets get cut. So what I've said is we will increase the tax on legal cannabis sales and dedicate that to youth services. So I want to be clear that we're not going to be using that to help out small businesses, but instead to support youth services. And a big issue right now for a lot of school districts has been the mental health of our kids who are isolated and stuck at home. Senior citizens, I think if, this is just something that people can do as a public service thing, is check in on seniors in their lives to make sure that they're doing okay mentally, and if they need help getting groceries instead of going out and exposing themselves to the pandemic. Fortunately, a lot of them are going to get the vaccine first.
Yeah. I'm going to throw a few topics here together here, and you can comment about your thoughts about solar, green, and maybe those two. Throw those two together here. Give us just a little more thought again. What you're thinking about our green city? You know, I tried many years ago, because Batavia's they're called the energy city. It's the same
Right.
same
Wind
idea.
passed way.
Yes, and I tried to get Congressman Foster to support my idea of putting having windmills out at Fermilab and helping out. I don't know. I just thought it was a good thought, but wind energy it's there. It's a little weaker than solar probably in our area, but it can be done. And well, what's your thought about anyway? Aurora could be the hub of solar and wind energy business-wise too. You're talking residential. Well, we could have industries too along those lines too. It doesn't have to be imported from China or wherever. I don't know. Some of these products are coming from other countries even. Solar too. Our area could be the hub here. We'll give Fermilab to Aurora too. It's right on the border. It is. It's in every.
So wait.
It's
Let's make sure
Aurora
that the fair
too.
trade. You get the
We could
casino, and we get Fermilab.
Yeah, you get Fermilab too, but Batavia gets the mailing address. But whatever, it's right on the line. So that idea of energy, new energy in the area, I think is very good. I want you to expound more. I'm sorry, I prolonged
Sure.
it. Yeah.
So I live in a 116-year-old house, and I guess coming up on 117. And I've made it about 80% more energy efficient. I'm a union carpenter, and I think I mentioned earlier, certified some green builder through BPI. So I know what I'm doing versus your average homeowner. But if I can do it, the Germans and Austrians have figured out how to build schools that don't use conventional heating and cooling systems. They're heated by body heat alone. The German passive house is what it's called. We have a school in Champaign-Urbana here, tied to the engineering school at University of Illinois, and there's a lot of room. This is green building, not alternative energy. With respect to alternative energy opportunities, I think that we might want to explore what kind of micro hydroturbines we can put into the Fox River to generate free power.
Well, that's interesting.
Just because, like you mentioned, we don't.
I think that's a
we're
good.
Kind of landlocked here.
Use that again, and that's why most of our cities came to the area was because of the river. Go on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, just certainly we want to look at wind options. That might be a little easier moving out western Illinois, where there's fewer urban development and more cornfields to work with. But I would say that the first step is having a Department of Sustainability, knowledgeable people that can look at those opportunities for us.
Yeah, well, thank you much on that. And I think one of your thoughts is have a lot of community centers too more, and that's a good point to have in our areas. I'm going to go to a topic that's probably got some more heat on it.
Let's do it.
It's the police topic and police reform. I want to ask you a direct question. I don't think this is where you're thinking, but I want to ask you because somebody's going to ask you sooner or later, probably.
I might have already been asked.
What do you think of the police chief, and would you retain the current police chief, Chief Zeman, if you're elected? What's your thought on that?
My first thoughts is, we mentioned some things like the small businesses that are downtown Aurora. I did not expect a lot of them to be supporting my campaign. I assumed they were happy with her, and I was wrong. They're not. The other area that I did not expect to run into was the number of people who reached out to my campaign to let me know about police abuse of power in our city. And it has me concerned because it infringes on people's human rights. I've met with Chief Zeman. I don't know what her plans are staying in Aurora or not.
I know she's been out there for
we didn't talk about.
She's been for Chicago and Nashville police.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and she's after the Henry Pratt shooting, she has a national profile. So I don't know if she wants to stay. I've heard rumors. I have never asked her that directly.
Right.
What I do want to change is the culture.
Right.
And in our police department, and I don't think we want to create a culture where people can feel free to challenge unethical behavior.
Okay.
So there's not a pressure to cover up when somebody makes a mistake. And that's what we need to change is our culture, professionalism. There's going to be additional changing. There's going to be a new mission. There's some exciting things happening in law enforcement now John, that if you haven't had Sheriff Hain on, he's looking at job training programs in the King County Jail.
Yeah, well,
And
I
the reason,
understand
yeah,
that's a different type of thinking in the past instead of just locking them up and letting them sit there.
yep. So
Yeah,
I'm
no,
going to want to
that's very
make,
good. That's very good.
what you're doing is you're trying to get somebody ready to come back out into
Right.
society,
You're
enter
trying to
society,
do
and
a
be a
little,
productive member.
right. You're instead of just locking them up and just sitting them over there. And no, I think that's very good. Mhm.
So I would want to partner with him on some of those initiatives and make sure that people continue to, we have the opportunities for people that want to reform their lives and re-enter society in Aurora.
Right.
And so I'm going to work with him on those training programs and what level of that is coming out of the police department or a different department in the city.
Right.
I want to make sure that we're doing it because if you don't create economic opportunities for people, they're going to go right back to a life of crime, and that's not good for our city.
No, we don't need that. And
Did I answer your question on Chief Zeman, or did I dodge it? Because I think there's one more
no, you
point.
didn't dodge it. I think that's a legit answer. I'm not gonna. If you
Yeah,
want to
and I don't. I'm never comfortable talking about people's employment status.
No, I don't want to get that way,
in
but
public.
some people would get into that's how we reform the whole system. Just get rid of. It's like the Cubs getting rid of their manager. It doesn't necessarily
Right.
help anything. It just makes you feel good. Yeah, we don't want Zeman to be that way just because we got to feel good, and yeah.
Right.
And reform is needed, and we know that. So I don't want to say she can't reform, and I think she can. My understanding is, you know more of this. I know my friend Vince Gaddis was on about a week ago or more. We discussed two topics. I'm going to give you just about body cameras. Are they coming, or how is that? You know much about body cameras for our police?
Body cameras are coming. The city council has appropriated the resources to do so. I don't know where they're at. I think they were doing some field testing with it. So I don't think it's been fully implemented. It might take a little bit more time, but they are coming.
But they are coming. So that's for everybody. I mean, it's out on the street, I assume, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
The patrolman. I don't know if everybody in the office is.
No,
right.
We don't need.
There's another piece.
We don't need to see those
a
guys
lot of
going
people
over and drinking coffee, and going and talking to each other. We don't need that. No, we need it for real things out there. And no, it's understandable. And our good policemen, we saw that the last few days. Very good policemen were putting themselves on the line in Washington. It was a sad story there in Washington. I don't want to digress anymore on that, but that is, police are doing. And we need to watch too. And of course, there's a report in Washington that some police weren't doing the job there. And so that's the same in Aurora. We're going to have the community review. Yeah. Oh, civic. No, what's the SC for?
Civilian Review Board.
Civilian Review Board. And now, would you expand that, leave it the way it is, or give it more authority? What's your thought on that? There's, we can. It's a new topic. What do you think on that one?
I was critical of it in the council meetings, and the reason is because I don't think it's independent enough. Now, you mentioned Vince Gaddis. He's one of the 40 finalists. I think that the first step is having good people on that board. The second, and they might get that.
Right. I saw the 40 in the paper. I know a few of them. In the Beacon.
Yeah, I know a lot of names on there too. And some are going to be very ethical and ask the right questions. But the other piece of it, I think what we really need is oversight and independent oversight. And so the process now under the current CRB is that if there's an incident, the internal police review system takes over. Right. And there's the police are reviewing themselves. And then they present their findings to the board, make the recommendation. The board asks some questions and makes a ruling that is a recommendation but not binding. And so I think what people want is more independence. What I would do differently is take the resources that are used for that internal review process and give those directly to the board so the board could hire an independent investigator.
Oh, okay.
So I think that puts the power in the hands of the board. It's independent. the community is going to trust it. Part of what we need to do is rebuild trust between the police and the community. And if it's an independent review board, it's going to go miles ahead to rebuild that trust. And so those are some core changes that I would like to the CRB. It's positive to see that it's been moved into the public discussion, that the council's acted, but there are still a lot of questions. As you know, it's sort of in its infancy here.
Right. And I guess I'm making this assumption, I guess this is correct, that the current mayor is going to be the one that's going to be appointing these people, and I don't know what the terms are or how, how long this is. So that's sort of setting it more, I don't know, quite in stone, but it's just setting it a little more before if you were elected, right? I mean, it's going to be a little, I mean, it's already out there. I mean, it's already out of the chute or whatever you want to say.
All of the boards and commissions that the mayor has currently appointed are going to be in place, and there's processes. So I said, step one for us is setting our goals,
right?
And then step two is getting the staff aligned to meet those goals,
right?
And that's going to involve some restructuring,
right?
I don't intend to move quickly on replacing people that may have worked. I don't think if somebody's working against me and they're on the mayor's current board that they need to be replaced out of some vindictiveness. So some of those boards and appointments, we'll work with them and replace them as people step on.
You're going to get your input in there and in that direction. Now, here's a thing that I know a lot of people were thinking on in Aurora, and it was an article a few months ago, I think right after the protest and quote riot that we had in Aurora, which wasn't good. But they had a review of the police department and the breakdown on minorities in the police departments in the Beacon. And I just looked it up. It was like 5% of the police force of over 300 was African American, and 20% was Hispanic. And to be more in line with our population in Aurora, those numbers both should be doubled, I would say. I mean, that'd be about right. 20 and 40.
Those numbers sound right.
10 and 40 would be about right, because Hispanics about 43% in Aurora. So how are we going to do that one? That's a tricky one. How to get the police more diverse, and your thought about only making the police, I noticed, Aurora only people.
So this idea, what I would like to see long term is to recruit a grow your own plan, and that means having a relationship, and the police department has a relationship in the high school cadet program in the high schools in Aurora, and we can recruit a future police force that is more reflective of the demographics of our city. And I think that it also is going to get more people from Aurora who are already part of our community, who care about our community, serving our community. Right. And I think that's going to help change the culture and the relationship between police and community, because they come from a neighborhood. They're going to know a lot of people in that neighborhood. They're already going to know where the sort of the bad apples might be hanging out. And they're going to be more inclined, if they run into a youth who's in trouble, to take that youth aside and say, hey, there's this community center over here, church group over here that might be a better place for you to hang out. And, what's going on, and how can we be supportive of you becoming a productive part of our community, and we care about you and want to see you succeed. If somebody comes from the community in the neighborhood, they're going to be more inclined to see the rest of the people in that neighborhood succeed. So the contract, you can't force people to move, and I wouldn't want, if somebody lives in Batavia and works for Aurora, I don't want them uprooting their family to bring them here, because that would affect their kids. I would rather us focus on new hires being
okay. That's what I was going to ask. You're sort of you would grandfather in those that are there right now. And then try to
Exactly.
make what's the
Yeah.
objective for the future, or I don't know, or new hires, whatever.
Right. And so to be clear, I think there is a proposal. I mean, I haven't heard the details of the contract because those are all negotiated behind closed doors, but I do believe that there will be some form of stipend for those who want to move or live in the city.
Oh, well, that's an
So there's an
incentive.
incentive there.
That's another way to get an incentive that way. Yeah.
The other thought that, so I want to tell you something, John. We talked about having a more democratic form of government. This idea of recruiting cadets and people from our high school comes from a resident who brought it up to me, which I think is why we need to have a two-way street between City Hall and the residents, is because the best ideas from Aurora come from Aurora residents. I'm
Yeah.
not going to have all the answers. I don't pretend to be the smartest person in the room every time. My job is to listen to what other people have to say, good ideas, and make sure that we have buy-in from the community before we implement those ideas. So
Yeah.
another good idea that came out, somebody had suggested paying our police to attend block parties. So there's like a paid community
Oh,
service. So
I
they're,
like block parties.
yeah, right.
Nice
Then they're there building
idea. I
relationships
think
with people
police
in a
should be.
positive way. And
I
the
have
police
a
union like this as well.
yeah. We should have more Aurora block parties. I agree with you totally.
Coming together, one city united.
Maybe you should. Maybe that should be a new platform thing. We're going to support more block parties. I think that those are good ideas. No, I think block parties are good to get people together, and the police. Now, when I have a block party, I've always had a hard time getting Batavia police. Be honest with you, but I always get that fire guys coming. They love to do that spraying.
Yes.
They do that
Yes.
in Aurora too, I think.
Yeah.
The fire guys like it's a little easier to get them than the police to come out. But no, the police being there would be a good idea. That's a very good idea, John.
Sure, police and fire, they're all welcome.
Right,
All of our public servants should be there.
right.
And ideally, you want them doing
I
it on
had
their
the
own
mayor
time. But
once too to one of my black parties too. So that's something you got to think about now, John. You're gonna have to go to some black parties.
John Laesch equals more block parties.
Yes.
Vote April 6th.
I think it's a good thing. No, I think it's very community oriented. I think we need more of that. I know this pandemic is causing us a lot of problems
Yeah.
along this line. I didn't have a black party this last year, and I do still try to do a little communication with my neighbors here, but I know that's the same for you probably. It's hard.
Mhm.
And this campaign is it's going to be a little harder that way, isn't it, with the pandemic? Or you're doing a lot of online and other things? I want to throw that. This is a bonus question or something anyway.
Okay.
Well, how's that going to work for you? It's going to be a little harder here with the pandemic on the campaigning, you think, or how's that going to go for you?
We are being safe during the pandemic. We do go door to door. We do wear face masks. We have hand sanitizer that all of our canvassers carry with them. And what I found is people, a lot of the conversations are happening between a screen door, a glass screen door.
No, right. I understand.
So they can be a little hard of hearing sometimes, but I think people feel safe. We hang the door hanger on the door and then tell them a little bit about the campaign, ask for their support. And I think it's a safe way to campaign. And the other thing is, like you mentioned, people feeling really disconnected right now in our society. I think people are happy to see somebody show up and have a conversation. There's people that live alone that are lonely, and so that always feels good when you can make somebody's day a little bit brighter and just have a conversation. Sometimes they don't want to talk politics at all. They just want to see another human being.
Yeah, well, I think that's very good. I just get one more area and we'll wrap this maybe up here. It's all related to COVID here, though. You had some thoughts about utilities being held off from I don't know, cutoffs from because of the pandemic, electric and foreclosures and evictions. You want to give us a little thought on that, how you would handle those things right now, and then maybe have one or two more questions. That'll wrap it up.
Sure. So I said job one, keeping people in their homes, keeping them safe throughout the pandemic. We this is, I'll share with you. So I think January 31st is when the eviction moratorium
Yeah, I think
expires,
that's correct, because I
and
had,
we'll
yeah,
see if that gets extended by the state and federal lawmakers, and we'll work accordingly with them in May. Look, I would love to say by May we'll all be vaccinated. We will all be back to block party world. I can't say that.
I know.
But I think it's more realistic to say that we'll be picking up the pieces economically. How do you, as a mayor, keep people in their homes? It's actually going to require working with, law enforcement, the sheriff's office, to prevent evictions. Funny enough, years ago when the current sheriff and other candidates were running, this was one of my questions: is if we go through another housing crash, will you refuse to serve foreclosure papers? And none of them answered in the affirmative. But I think in the middle of a crisis, we're going to have to work with them. What can the city do specifically is we can set up a crisis center that helps people who are at risk navigate the paperwork necessary.
I want to give you a quick, maybe you weren't listening the last week, but I did have Rick Guzman, he's one of the chief guys in our area on eviction. So get Rick involved.
I would like, okay. I've knocked on Rick's door just to hear his
Yeah, you're
perspective
gonna
on
have
this
to.
race,
Oh,
and
okay.
I
You're
haven't
really gonna have
heard
to
from
get
him.
Rick going with you. Yeah. Okay.
John, maybe you can text me his number after
Yeah.
this.
No, I think he told me when I had our interview it was last Friday actually, that he was the chief guy maybe in the whole county doing getting on evictions. I mean,
Okay.
they've shifted their focus from foreclosures to evictions. Anyway, go on, John. I don't want to steal your time.
Yeah, no. The other concern I want to share with you is there are people that are, abusing the system. So they're still working, they still have an income, but they're not paying their rent. And there's even some small, the larger corporate rental properties are probably not going to suffer that much, but the small mom and pops, the people who
Yeah.
have put their entire retirement into a couple rental properties are also financially at risk of losing their entire retirement from this. So, I think I just like to show that I have a balanced view on this, that we're going to keep people in their homes, but we also don't want to take somebody else's retirement from somebody who's abusing the system. So there's got to be some pre-qualifications for city assistance.
Yeah,
So like if you've lost your job, etc.
I think the city I would hope, would be working with the federal. It sounded like I didn't listen to all the speech yesterday, President-elect Biden, but I think he did say some of these things that we're talking about evictions and foreclosures. And excuse me, so I assume more money's coming from the federal side. But
I think there'll be we'll see how the Congress and Senate act, but presumably we'll be getting another round of stimulus.
Yeah, this is very important, and I want to say, my friend Rick on my interview there, he brought up that over a third of the people are renters. A third of our and Aurora might even be higher. Aurora's got a lot of units, houses, etc., that have turned into rentals. So there's probably maybe even higher. And I don't know, but he said it was a third of people were renters. So I go, wow.
So this is happening downtown. A lot of the places that have got healthy incentives from the city are putting together rental properties. And for me, I want to be very clear. The direction I want to go is more home ownership. I think when you own your own home, there's more pride in it. You're going to take care of it. And I just think that that's the direction that we need to take the city, away from rental. And you do that by stabilizing the economy and attracting better paying jobs. So that's how you address, I believe, poverty and move us towards home ownership instead of a rental market.
I know you're a type of guy who wants to work with people. I know, I was just thinking, Aurora's been very fortunate, and as a community has some good nonprofits that are really helping our community, like Hesed House, the food pantries. And during this pandemic, they're still stretched. And how would you continue and expand that good partnership that we've been having and with these groups?
So, one, there's room. There's a long list of nonprofits in Aurora that are doing good work. I see a need for expanded mental health services.
Oh, mental health, yeah.
And especially as it applies to low income and homeless population. And secondly, the one change I'd really like to see in Hesse, a lot of cities are doing this, is moving to tiny homes. And remember how I talked about ideas coming from the community? There's a woman by the name of Maria Huerta who has come up with a very detailed plan to put homeless people in tiny homes. And if you think about this, if we were ever to face a pandemic again, people would still have a roof over their heads and be isolated. And secondly, even if you create incentives for people to sort of buy those places at a low cost, then there's even the pride of ownership, even if it's a small postage stamp of a living facility. Because 40%, I think, of the people, the last time I was over at Hesse to talk about these things, 40% of the people that live at Hesse are working 40 hours a week.
Oh, really?
So they're going to work every day and they can't pay the bills. So they just need an affordable place to stay. And then the final thought on that is, back in 2008, 2009, 2010, during the economic crash, the last economic crash, it was probably when I did more of my volunteer work at Hesed, and a lot of those were families. And so you want to make sure that you're able to separate the families from those people that might be facing an addiction problem.
Oh, yeah, right.
But
right.
hopefully we don't go through another housing crash. I'd like to be optimistic about it, but you do need to think about these things and prepare for them.
Right. Well, I thank you, John. We've discussed quite a bit. Our time is, we've had an interesting discussion. There's more to discuss. And you can look at John's platform there. And John's going to be out there campaigning, so you can hear more from John and some of his thoughts for the city of Aurora. And I'm just so thankful that John could join me today. And I'm just going to do one more thing, John, here. Just to remind people that they can get their testing now in Batavia. You got it in Aurora, the COVID testing. Be sure to get that appointment for COVID testing. It's still out there, this bad boy of COVID. You can get that testing by calling 892-4355. So again, we're going to have a guest on Monday, Lord willing. We'll see what comes about. It's always we keep getting we're going to, and like I said, we're going to try to have the other two candidates. I know we're going to have, and the mayor too, Judd Lofke and Mayor Irvin down the road here too. So I did thank our friend here, John Laesch, for coming by today, and we really appreciate John being with us. And so again, thank you, John, so much for coming and visiting with us this afternoon. And so all I can say right now to everybody out there is God bless everybody out there, and we'll see you soon again. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Again, thank you, John. Bye-bye.
Thank you, John.
It's all.